I've been a driving instructor since 2009, and in that time I've sat in and observed countless driving tests. In this video I'm going to explain exactly how they expect you to drive to pass the driving test in the UK. I'm going to start with moving away from the side of the road, and despite what you may have been told, you don't have to check your left blind spot, left mirror, centre mirror, and right blind spot before moving away. I would struggle doing all those observations before I move away. I'd spend more time thinking about where I'm looking than actually looking at who's coming. What you need to do is make sure you use whatever mirror you need to, or mirrors you need to see what's coming. When no one's coming, quick check of the blind spot and get going. For example, now there's no cars coming behind, quick check of the blind spot, and then you set off. That's all that's needed. Signal if there's anyone around that is going to help, but if there's no one around, you don't need to signal. If I was going to move away now, I would signal because there's oncoming cars and a pedestrian, and it's helpful for them to know that I'm moving away. That way they won't come into my side of the road. As for blind spots, you only need to check the roadside blind spot, and that's because the curbside blind spot isn't a problem. There's no way someone there is going to get here before you do. However, on the roadside, you've got this black car and this silver car which could be pulling out of the driveway, and as they come out of that driveway, they're going to head up the road at the same time as I head up the road, and I might not see them coming in the mirror, as you can see, but if I turn my head, you can see where they are. If when you decide to move away, you make somebody else change their speed or direction, for example, a car coming up behind, you move away and make the car behind brake for you, you will most likely fail. It's up to the examiner. The examiner doesn't have to fail you. It's up to their own judgment. If they feel you've made the car behind brake a lot, they will most likely fail you. But if you've only made them brake a tiny bit, they'll more than likely mark it as a non-serious driving fault. However, if you continue to do it, they will then make that a serious driving fault. At basic junctions, so that could be turning into a road on the left, the right, or even coming to the end of your road to turn either left or right, you must use the mirror signal maneuver routine. For example, I'm turning right here, so it's centre, right mirror, and right signal for the mirror signal, and the maneuver is to slow down to an appropriate speed, select an appropriate gear, use the box in the middle if there is a box in the middle, and make the turn when it's safe. The appropriate gear is now first gear, as I've had to stop for oncoming cars. If I was turning left, I would check my centre and left mirror and use the left signal. Manoeuvre can be broken down into different stages. Most instructors use position, speed, look. I use speed, gear, decide. I have a video in the top right hand corner all about junctions that you may want to click on. There is no set speed or gear you need to obtain to do the junction. As long as it's safe and legal, you will be okay. So for example, I'm going to turn right up here into this road. So centre right mirror right signal, into the box, and as I can see it's quite open and clear. Second gear and 10 miles an hour should be fine. No one's coming and I can turn into the junction. However, this time I won't be able to do 10 miles an hour in second gear because I'm coming to the end of the road and I can see precisely diddly squat. So I'm going right, that's centre right mirror right signal, and on this occasion I'm going to have to come to a near standstill, select first gear, and very slowly improve my view until I can see it's safe for me to continue. And now they're waiting for me. Oh, their lights flash because of the speed bump. Even I make that mistake sometimes. I thought they were going to put into that gap up there. It's your responsibility to make sure you can see where you're going. So you need to know how your windscreen wipers work and how your demisters work. During your driving test, you are expected to follow the road ahead unless your examiner states otherwise or road signs or markings state otherwise. For example, here I have a mini roundabout, so if the examiner hasn't said anything, it means I should go straight. But as I can see it's clearly a bus lane, that means I have to take the initiative to turn right. You have to notice this yourself. On this occasion I can't turn right because the exit's blocked. Aha, now I can go and ready to stop at the zebra crossing. Of course, stop at all zebra crossings too, if someone's there. Oh, and you have to wait until they've completely finished crossing before you can continue, unless there's an island in the middle, in which case, once they get to the island, then you can continue. On dual carriageways, you should be in the left lane unless you're overtaking or unless you know you're about to turn right soon, and you must abide by all the speed limits throughout the test. That doesn't mean you have to be doing the speed limit. It is a limit after all, not a target, but try to make the most of the speed limit when it's safe to do so. During the driving test, you must follow all the road signs and markings, especially the stop sign. Coming to a near stop doesn't butter any parsnips. You have to actually bring the car to a complete stop before you can continue. And in this case, it was a hill start. And that brings me on to hill starts. During your test, you will be expected to do a hill start. It doesn't matter what method of hill start you use, as long as you don't roll back, you will be fine. If you roll back a tiny amount, they will most likely let you off, but try not to roll back at all. I'll leave a link to a video up there all about hill starts. About 1 in 3 tests has the emergency stop. Once you've done the stop, secure the car, handbrake and neutral, and wait for your examiner to tell you what to do. When they tell you where to go, it will either be to pull up at the side of the road or carry on. Make sure you check both blind spots before you move away, because you're no longer parked at the side of the road and there is room for people to pass on the left. You can use the ABS to help you with the emergency stop, and don't worry, the driving examiner isn't going to suddenly shout stop at some random moment during your test. They will make you pull over at the side of the road and explain that this is where you're going to do the emergency stop, and they will only ask you to stop if it's safe. If during your test you stall, don't worry, clutch down, make sure it's in the correct gear, make sure the engine's restarted. If not, start it yourself with a key, and then make sure it's safe and continue. You don't have to stop and use the handbrake unless it's unsafe to proceed or you're worried about rolling back. Stalling on your driving test isn't necessarily a fail unless you stall in a bad place and cause danger. And I've left a link to a video in the top right hand corner of your screen all about how to avoid stalling. During the driving test, you will be asked to do the angle start. The angle start is when your examiner asks you to pull up before a car at the side of the road and they say stop within a car length. Something like this. And then they ask you to move away when it's safe. And you've got to make sure you move away when it's safe without losing control of the car, nearly hitting this car or driving way too over to the right because you can't keep the car slow. So it's all about keeping the car slow and being able to steer around an object. When cars are parked on both sides of the road, it's first come, first serve as to who goes first. And if cars are on your side of the road, you must wait, and if cars are on the other side of the road, the oncoming cars should wait. However, if someone has already committed to coming through, like this Saab up here, which is just pulling in, I'll make sure I let them finish before I go. And this oncoming car now has a space, so they can use the space. The oncoming Mercedes is coming through. No, he is waiting. I think there is enough room for us to just about squeeze anyway. And I'm really slow. That's because I'm really close. If you're close to people, like these kids, or parked cars, because doors can open, you must go very slow. If you can keep a full doors width, then you can do the speed limit. But if you've got less than half a doors width from the cars, which really isn't much at all, we're talking less than half a metre here, then you should be probably around about 10 miles an hour. So now I'm speeding up, now I'm out of all the danger, and now I'm already close to 30 miles an hour. When you're dealing with parked cars or any obstructions in the road, if you're going to move to the right, always check your centre right mirror first, and when you go to move back to the left, check your centre and left mirror before you move, just to make sure you know what's next to you before you move the car. When waiting at traffic lights, it's advisable to use the handbrake, although you don't have to. And remember, when you have a green light and you're turning right, oncoming cars also have a green light, so you will have to wait in the middle until there's no oncoming cars, and you can't stop on the stop line before or after. Now there's space for me to go after the stop line, I'll go. And the lights have turned red now, so if you're in the middle of the junction and the lights go red, you must finish. If you're not using the handbrake at traffic lights, you should use at least the foot brake. And you may have noticed as I went ahead at those traffic lights, the lights turned amber as I got going. Don't slam your foot on the brakes hard if the lights go amber, amber being orange. Amber lasts 3 seconds, stop if you can, and go if you can't. Avoid stopping halfway across the line. When dealing with traffic, try not to accelerate to the car in front and brake, and make sure there's no risk of you blocking any junctions or keep clear areas. You can do this by leaving a little bit of space between you and the car in front, and make sure you've got space to go past the area before you enter the area. For example, now I know I've got just about enough space to go past these traffic lights before I've entered them, so I know I'm not going to be stopped blocking them. Here's a good example here. There's a road on the left. I'm not going to go alongside that road until I know I can get past it, although the car in front might block it anyway. Nope, so they're just fitting past it and I'm going to wait before it. But now I can see the queue is continuing. I will continue with the queue as I know I'm not going to stop and block the junction. You've got some keep clear, very faded keep clear markings on the road here that you also have to do the same thing to. Only go into them when you know you can fit past them. Here's another example. Here's some traffic lights, a yellow box junction. I'm slowing down, making sure I've got space to go past it before I enter it. In traffic, it can be tempting to try and keep up with the car in front, but that just leads to harsh acceleration and then possibly harsh braking when you get to the car in front. Try and play a game instead where you keep the car rolling and stop and start as little as possible. At the moment, I'm leaving the crossing for pedestrians clear here. It's not a proper pedestrian crossing, but it's where people want to cross. That's why you've got the bit in the middle where people can wait. There's not enough room for me to fit past it at the moment, but when the blue car in front moves, then I'll carry on. As you can see, people are now using it to cross. And that's exactly why motorbikes and mopeds need to be careful when they're passing traffic. In slow moving traffic, you will find that you're coasting quite a lot. Below 5 miles an hour in a manual car, you need to coast to drive well. For example, the moment I'm above 5, so I can be fully off the clutch and just move the car along with the gas pedal. But if I need to stay below about 5 miles an hour, like I do now, I need to hold the clutch down. That's good coasting. Coasting is a part of driving. It's not all bad. Coasting's bad when you're at speed, particularly above 10 miles an hour, and when you're going downhill and you put it in neutral and let it coast downhill because you haven't got the engine to help keep you slow. If you've got to cross the pavement like I do here, make sure you give way to pedestrians first, because this road isn't that clear. It actually looks more like a pavement, and the car has left me some space. He's left the keep clear free so I can go. Otherwise, if everyone blocked it, you'd never get out of there. You often hear that you must keep your hands at 10 to 2 and you can never coast, and you must check your mirrors every 10 seconds to pass a driving test. But a lot of that is untrue. You should make sure you look where you need to look, when you need to look there to make sure you're safe, and whatever method you use to control the car, as long as you are in good control of the car, that should be fine. The driving examiners are very flexible in what method of car control you choose to use. And that neatly brings me on to reversing. During your driving test, you're going to get one reversing exercise. That could be either reversing into a parking space in a car park, driving forwards into a parking space in a car park and then reversing out, pulling over on the right hand side of the road and then reversing back to car lengths, or parallel parking behind a car, although that won't be between 2 cars, it will be behind just 1 car, and if there is 2 cars, the car behind you will be very far away. And the reason that brings me on to reversing is because it's the same for your manoeuvres. It doesn't matter how you do your manoeuvres, as long as you complete them you make effective observations and you have good control of the car. Your observations need to be good enough that your driving examiner is convinced that you will notice anybody before they have a chance to get to you, and your control needs to be good enough so that you're keeping the car slow and not suddenly shooting backwards or forwards. You don't actually have to complete your manoeuvre with one reversing attempt. You can come back again if you need a second attempt. I have a playlist, it's called Parking and Reversing. In that playlist are all the manoeuvres you may get on test, so it's worth checking out. You will be happy to know that examiners are very helpful when it comes to giving directions. And if up ahead the lane you need is different to usual and there is no road signs or markings to help you, they will often give you some help. For example, if they want you to go ahead at a roundabout, they'll say, at the next roundabout, you are going ahead, second exit, but you may find it easier to use the right lane. If they say this, make sure you use the right lane. They know that most people use the right lane, or you need to use the right lane on that particular roundabout. However, there's no good road signs or markings to let you know. That doesn't mean they're always going to tell you which lane to use. They will only tell you which lane to use if it's different to usual, because normally going ahead is the left lane and there's no signs or road markings to help you. It is your job, or should I say your responsibility as a driver, to make sure you're paying attention and notice where you need to be going. Use the mirror signal manoeuvre routine at roundabouts. Mirror signal left for going left, mirror signal right if you're turning right, and signal to leave at the exit before the one you're taking. Make sure that you don't brake harshly, so if you're not sure whether or not you can go, just slow down and stop. Only go when you're sure. Also, don't straight line the roundabout. That's a common mistake people make. If there's 2 lanes before the roundabout, there's 2 lanes on the roundabout, so as you go round it, make sure you stay in your lane. But now I'm indicating left to leave. It's quite busy here at the moment. And again, in traffic, I'm going to try and keep rolling slowly instead of catching up with the car and braking, I'll just try and keep it consistent. If you find yourself in the wrong lane at a roundabout, it's better to go the wrong way than make a sudden, harsh, unplanned lane change, which may be dangerous. Going the wrong way isn't a fail, and your examiner will take you on a slightly different route. However, do try to go the correct way, because if you keep going the wrong way consistently, your examiner may terminate the test. On country roads, you should be speeding up on the straights and slowing down on the bends. Doing 1 speed won't cut the mustard. If you're doing 1 speed, that either means you're going too fast on the bends or too slow on the straights. On roads like this, where it's only really just wide enough for 2 cars, you can use more than just one half of the road, but don't do it on bends. So when it's straight, to keep yourself away from the bush and away from the gutter or the stones and the holes at the side of the road, do move over a little bit towards the middle, not completely in the middle of the road, but if you put your wheels in the middle of the road, that's fine. And when someone comes the other way, you can slow down and get closer to the bush, because I only really like to be close to the edge with all these potholes everywhere at lower speeds. Like now I'm going quite quick, I'm a bit nearer the middle, but now I'm slowing down and bringing it back to the left just in case someone comes. Now I can see no one's coming, I can speed up again and use a bit more of the road, and then braking again for the bend. Always look at the space that you've got to use, don't look at the oncoming car, because that might just be scary. On 70-mile-an-hour roads, you will be expected to do close to 70 miles an hour if it's safe to do so. If you're doing much below the speed limit and there wasn't any real reason, for example, there was no poor weather, poor visibility, or it's just too many cars meant you can't go that quick, they will mark you down. Whether or not it's a fail depends on how slow you go and for how long. That's up to the examiner. But certainly above 65 will do it. If you did 60 for a long period of time without any reason, I've known people to get a minor for that. On your driving test, you will have to be able to follow a sat-nav or follow road signs. You don't get to choose which. Your examiner will tell you which ones. If they said go towards Colchester on this sign, you'll be expected to know which way to go. But don't worry, if the sat-nav isn't clear or misleading, the examiner will tell you where to go. You will generally fail the driving test if you beckon pedestrians to cross. For example, if you're at a zebra crossing and the person's not crossing quick enough for you and you start waving at them to get them to cross because you're putting them under pressure. As you saw earlier, when I was waiting and leaving a space clear for people to cross, that's okay to do that in traffic, I recommend it. But there was a moped that overtook me as the pedestrians were planning on crossing. If I was putting them under pressure, that's going to make the situation worse. Well, I hope this video gives you an idea of what's expected of you on the driving test in the UK. If you think it does, please give the video a thumbs up and check out Collingwood and Confused. Collingwood are great if you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on somebody else's car, because they allow you to do that without affecting their policy. Via the link, there's up to 35% off at the moment and a £20 Amazon gift card. If you're insuring your own car, I recommend checking out confused.com also, because you can fill out one quote form, get many quotes back, and you can change the car on that quote form as many times as you like to see what car is cheaper if you're thinking about buying a car. It helps you choose your car. Using the links in the description costs you nothing but does support this channel, so thank you very much. I have Instagram and Facebook, both of those are Conquer Driving if you want to check those out, and subscribe to get my future videos. And until the next one, cheerio.